Hi everyone. Welcome
Welcome
back.
back.
uh, this is the actual start of the stream. You guys were just here. If you were here previously, you were just here for the
We were hanging.
pre-show. We were hanging out, yeah. Um, so just to recap a little bit, player structures. That's happening. And what we've got here for you is am I upside down? I'm upside down. I'm going to go ahead and go through the dev version of Starscape: The Conquered Frontier, which is the next major update to Starscape. So yeah, we've been working on this for 2 to 3 months, um, and it's yeah, here we are. So there's a lot to talk about. First, let's talk about where I am in Starscape. So I'm in a system called Alpagit, I suppose is how you would pronounce that. Um,
Typical
Alpagit,
Starscape system.
Alpagit, it turns out, is located in colonization zone Gamma. Um, there are 8 colonization zones added to wild space, comprising currently approximately 1,000 star systems, and you will be able to deploy structures in any of these 1,000 systems. So I'll zoom out a little more to show you what that looks
I was
like.
surprised you didn't show this in the video.
I wanted to on the end screen, but I couldn't find a way to make it obvious, so I just showed the normal map.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, starting up here, we have zone alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, and theta. Uh, kind of fun naming, but that's how the Greek alphabet works. Uh, so what's the idea behind this? So when we were talking about this, when Arctic and I were discussing this system, our original plan was just kind of making it so that you can deploy these structures anywhere in wild space. And then as we were thinking about it, we were like, okay, if you can deploy anywhere in wild space, then that can be a problem because any of these like really popular jumping off points into wild, like that are right next to faction territory and things like that are going to be choke points that are really, really heavily fought over for deploying structures, which sounds cool in theory, but in practice would be a bit of a nightmare. So the idea here was, okay, well let's contain things a little bit. So originally we were like, okay, well maybe you can't deploy structures within say 3 jumps of secure space or of non-wild space. Uh, that eventually became the colonization zones idea because something that I do really like about Starscape is the ability to just get lost in wild space. And if there were structures in every system in the game, it would be very, very. It could get very, very busy, or you would never know if you're jumping into a system what to expect necessarily. Wouldn't be new player friendly necessarily. Wouldn't be super friendly to solo players and stuff like that. I still do think about that experience. So the idea is let's roll this out in colonization zones. And as I said, they comprise about 1,000 star systems. You can click on them, it'll give you some information about them here. So you can see this Epsilon has 180 systems. They're also very varied in size. So this one that I am settled in for the purposes of this demo is actually the smallest one in the game at only 33 stars. So that's this is on purpose. Of course, we want to change a variety of or we want to have a variety of different sort of situations in these colonization zones. So these small ones might be very hotly contested. Maybe a single faction is going to try really hard to control this entire area. Conversely, the largest zone in the game, which is maybe Theta down here, I forget, No, it's not theta because epsilon's pretty big. Epsilon might be the biggest. If there are 180 systems in a colonization zone, it's easier for like a small faction to get lost in there, and sort of stake out their own little claim. In addition, uh, there are there are a lot of logistics considerations that will make a single faction controlling an entire colonization zone very difficult, just in terms of refueling and resupplying your structures. So that's something that will need to be considered. Additionally, so thinking about the updates that I made in the dev blog, the different colonization zones are located within different regions that have different resource distributions. So this is going to be a consideration when factions are deciding where they want to set up shop. Now, I have been saying factions here. I do want to make clear we do expect most of the player structure gameplay to be centered around factions, but there is an option to deploy a faction for yourself without allowing your entire faction access, or if you're not in a faction at all. So you'll be able to take a look at the map and say, okay, well, Beacon has very abundant coralite. Maybe I really like coralite, and again, these resource distributions are not finalized. They will almost all likely change before we actually release the update, but that might tell you a little bit of something about where you might want to be setting up shop. There are very different resource distributions throughout the galaxy, or throughout the map, and so
And
that'll
they
be a
will
consideration.
probably all change before release. So
Exactly.
anything we're showing now is a hypothetical.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely very hypothetical. So let's see. That's sort of the overview of where you're going to be able to make structures. It's all in wild space, and in addition to that, it is restricted to these colonization zones. So outside of these colonization zones, you can't deploy structures. But so that should keep things relatively balanced there. So now going back to the actual structures I have set up here. So I haven't messed with them since I recorded the trailer a couple days ago. So they're actually currently offline, which gives us a fun opportunity to watch the shield tower come back online again, which is one of my favorite things. I think before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and store some of my cargo, because I want to switch out my ship. So this is actually, I'm just going to kind of go through gameplay here. This is the structure management UI. So every structure has this same user interface. You will notice the hit points for this look ridiculous at 500,000 here. That's going to go up a lot, especially for things like shield towers. Right now for testing, they're set very low at say 25,000 or 50,000 shield hit points, just because I want to test bringing down the shield. We're going to be talking tens, if not hundreds of millions of hit points, and we'll explain why and how that plays in a little bit here. But right now I'm going to go ahead and refuel this cargo depot because I want it to come back online so that I can store some of the other cargo here so that I can actually go over to the ship refitter and switch out my ship. So you'll see this cargo depot is onlining. It's not super this one doesn't have like any big effect when it comes online or anything because it's just a cargo depot. But when it does come online, I'll show off the cargo storage system. Okay, so all right, it's back online. You see the lights turned on and everything, so that's a lot of fun. If we look here again, it'll tell us it's operating normally, and you'll see the shield is actually starting to tick back up. So that's awesome. When we go ahead and actually view the cargo storage, this is going to be this will become very familiar to you, this screen. This is a new item transfer screen, which is used to transfer items between structures and your ship. So right now I have, if you look at the cargo depot, you can see I actually have a bunch of cargo already stored here. Um, I'm going to go ahead and store most of my spaceship parts because I don't need them. And yeah, my high grade fuel actually I don't think I need right now. Let's see. I think that brings us up to our cap. So yeah, if we look now at the cargo depot, I've stored 60 pieces of cargo here, which is currently the cap. You know, we may change that. We may add larger cargo depots. So I've dropped off some of my cargo. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and online the refinery. I'm gonna online a bunch of the structures because I'm gonna show them all off. Ship refitter. And don't worry, I will show off all these. So the ship refitter, in addition to accepting fuel, accepts spaceship parts. So I'm going to put those in. Spaceship parts contribute to refit points, and refit points allow you to refit your ships and change ships. At the ship refitter, we will show that off. Lots of exciting new features. The repair bay over here does exactly what you think it does. It repairs your ships. So again, it also accepts spaceship parts for repairs, like but instead of refit points, it shows off hit points, or it heals a certain number of hit points per cargo crate that you deliver. So I'm going to online this one too, and then oh man, we actually have a lot of stuff to refuel. I forgot about the defense platforms. Storage silo. And then, yeah,
Keth will go over this later, but there are different tabs for all the storage type structures where you can privately store stuff that you don't want your faction members or faction members below a certain rank to access.
Arctic, how's the stream looking, by the way?
Very good, actually,
Okay,
for Twitch.
it's all right.
It's looking great. Do we want to talk about fuel very quickly, since right now we're working on fueling the structures? I think addressing fuel quickly would be neat.
Great idea. Thank you for keeping me on track here. So if you read the dev blogs, you noticed that the we added ice deposits and a new water refining skill. I very strategically left out the fact that we also added heavy water. So if I look at my skills now, heavy water is now a resource. Station fuel, however, normal station fuel is made from just normal water. Actually, the recipes aren't in there yet, but I'll show those off shortly. But that high grade fuel I was showing is what you use heavy water for, though. So normal fuel is made with water and presumably a few other resources, or at least one other resource. We have not decided what the recipe for that is going to be yet, but we'll figure that out. High grade fuel will require heavy water, and the difference between fuel and high grade fuel is essentially that high grade fuel, a single cargo crate lasts twice as long as a normal crate of fuel. So that's going to be a consideration when, if you want to be using fewer cargo runs to refuel your structures, you'll want to be using heavy water, high grade fuel.
An important part. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
One important part of the entire fueling process is that right now, and it will probably change in the future, but right now there is no way to craft fuel at your station.
Yes.
If you want to fuel your station, you are going to have to go get in contact with an NPC station, and you're going to have to craft your fuel there, and then haul that fuel back to your station.
We're about to see the shield effect, so
nice.
Let's just give this a quick gander. All right, great. So I am now in my secure shield bubble. Again, for testing purposes, this you may have noticed as I opened up this um, structure management interface. It's only lasting 32 minutes with 8 crates of fuel. That's going to change. That's just for testing because I wanted to test the shield coming on online and offline a lot. Cool. So, gosh, where to go now? So that was a little whirlwind tour of all of the structures. I believe this is all the structures that are implemented. There is a smaller shield tower as well. You'll notice this is a shield tower M. This is something that we expect, definitely will take larger factions to build and maintain. There is a smaller shield tower, and I will show off the building process for structures as well. Maybe that's a decent place to start, actually. But to
Yeah.
do that, I need to get into a different ship. So I'm going to go ahead and go over here.
Oh my, what a great time to test the ship refitter, Kath.
Exactly. So um, the ship refitter can store any ship-related item inside it, and it can also store ships. So you can haul disassembled ships to your ship refitter and place them there for use later. And I'll just go ahead and show you how this works. I would not be able to go into the ship refitter if I had cargo, which is why I had to offload all my cargo into the structures, as you saw. But as I enter the ship refitter, it works pretty similarly to, well, actually it works unlike anything currently in the game, but it's similar to a docking bay. You just go up to the shield. Once you're in, it will load up the ship editor. And from here you can do basically anything you can do in the normal ship editor. You can select modules from your inventory or from the ship refitter. These are tabs in the ship refitter. I will explain what these tabs are. It'll take some getting used to why there are 4 of them. And then in addition to that, we can change the ship. So I can change to, say, a Paragon, and it will return the items that I just switched out to my inventory. Like my fun stuff here, so just quickly fit this up as I like it. And you'll notice as I'm switching things out here, so to change your ship, it costs a certain number of refit points. Also to add modules, it would cost, oh, this invulnerability field isn't in the game. It's not real, by the way. It's not coming. Don't think this is real. It's just a dev module. As I add modules and things like that, you can actually see that. Do I have any other modules in my inventory I can add? It doesn't really look like it. Oh well. I've got this. But you can see that the number of refit points this costs actually changes. So this will consume some of that cargo that you deliver as you change ships and refit your ships. So you'll need to have a continuous supply of spaceship parts to your structures if you want to be able to refit and repair them. Once I go ahead and finish here, there's one new thing that I don't think I've even told Arctic about that happens here. So I fly out of the ship refitter. I'm in my new ship. It's all great. My ship, however, is now overweight because I'm carrying an Andromeda in my cargo, and it goes way over. There wasn't a great way to it would be very, very complex to prevent players from switching out ships and stuff like that if they don't have cargo space and things like that. So I decided instead to go for this overweight modifier. But to get rid of it, we can just drop the Andromeda back off in there, and then we lose our overweight modifier, and I'm nice and nimble again. So this will just let me get around a little faster to show what's going on exactly. Defense platforms, man. Okay, I need to organize my thoughts. I'm gonna show off construction of structures. That's what I'm gonna show off. And I just realized I will need cargo to do that, so I need to switch back to my Andromeda. Sorry, guys.
It's exciting. It's all good.
Need to switch back to my Andromeda here. Oh yeah, I just fly into it. This ship refitter. Oh, worth noting here. A lot of you probably know this, but all of these models, structure models, are done by Arctic. So we worked very closely together to make sure that everything was like the right size. Um, and we think we've come up with a um, pretty good scale for these things. I'm just gonna add a few guns so I'm not defenseless. Okay. So I'm back in my Andromeda here. And I'll go ahead and deploy a new structure. I guess we'll go ahead and do maybe a defense platform. Yeah, I deployed this pretty closely to the edge of space. We can do another defense platform here, and I can show off how that's going to work. Okay, so you need to be about 500 meters away from other structures to deploy new ones. The way you deploy structures is there's a new item called a structure constructor. And the structure constructor is a constructor of structures. We don't have a crafting
Beautiful.
recipe for it yet, but you'll craft it at NPC stations using normal resources. Once you get to a colonization zone, you can choose a structure to deploy. So you don't need to carry blueprints or anything. Any of these structure constructors can deploy any of these structures, but they will have different recipes and different material requirements as you. So, like for example, a shield tower M will ultimately cost more to construct than, say, a defense platform. So, if I just go back here and do another defense platform, there's some confirmation. As I go to do it, I get to choose, do I deploy to deploy for myself or deploy for my faction? And because I'm in a bunch of other structures that are currently deployed for my faction, I would not, if I tried to do the deploy for self option, it would error out. So I'm going to deploy this one for the faction as well. Once the structure constructor is deployed here, we can this uses a similar system to faction warfare, where you drop off cargo and items. Again, these are not the final recipes. This is just for testing. We will rebalance all of this, don't worry. But it looks like I need to run back to the storage depot and pick up some fuel real quick, so bear with me. Just take one. So drop some fuel in here, and now I can choose to start construction. When I do this, this might look a little familiar, this screen, for those who have been around for a long time. This is very, very similar to the station placement tactical overlay that existed back in the first iteration of stations. So I borrowed that. But it gives us a nice overview of the entire region so that we can kind of look around, make sure that we're placing where we want to. It's also just kind of cool to look around like this. And yeah, I've decided that looking at the coverage here, I think we need another defense platform right here. And after we place it, it goes ahead and starts constructing it. Again, this is basically using the same thing as the faction warfare system for constructing structures. It's just that this is for private structures, so not everyone can trigger this constructor. And I'll talk a bit about that too. I guess as that's constructing, I can talk about this new faction UI that I was talking about. I left out a couple important roles. The whole point of this new faction UI that I made was because I needed to add new roles related to structures. So one of these is cache access. So you can give users access to a special tab in storage structures if you want to give them slightly elevated permissions from normal faction members. And then Structure Manager allows other members to deploy structures, um, refuel them, change the settings on structures, which I'll show off in a second here, change the loadouts of defense platforms, basically anything, disassemble structures, all that fun stuff. So I guess I'll give those for my alt there. So constructor finished up, and we can now go ahead and manage this defense platform. Same structure UI you saw before. You can see we're going up in shield now. And there's a new tab here different from what you see in the other structures, and that's the loadout. So you can add turrets as you please to the different sized hardpoints on the defense platform. So you'll see that this is a small one, this is medium, etc. I'm just going to add a couple right now. We'll add a couple medium beam turrets and a couple small railguns, because why not? It is a lot of turrets, so we'll see if we'll definitely need to do balancing around these defense platforms. The other thing you'll notice is that they are within the shield, which is going to take some very careful balancing, because while this shield is up, these defense platforms are, like anything else in the shield, invulnerable. So I'm going to go ahead and give another quick demonstration of, like you saw in the trailer, I'm just going to show off the defense platforms killing some stuff because it's fun. And then we can get into some settings for structures. Yeah, so enjoy looking at all of my fun dev tools. Let's spawn some advanced pirate frigates. And so I'm under attack now. And you'll see that the defense platforms are coming to my rescue. Oh my god, I need to get back into the shield though, or this is going to be a really quick demo. So the defense platforms are helping me out here and attacking the pirates here. They will also, of course, attack hostile players. I'll show off how those settings work. And once I'm back in the shield, you'll see that all of those shots, just like with faction warfare, are landing on the shield and cannot affect me. So that's nice and dandy there, and they should make quick work of this last one. Something that you'll see here again from the dev blogs is the NPC AI improvements were exactly for this. I did not plan on doing this, but I realized that if defense platforms could only target one enemy at a time, it would be incredibly easy for a blob of enemy faction, an enemy blob, to just cheese the defense platforms. So the NPC AI improvement was primarily for that reason, although it has major effects for the rest of the game too, with allowing multiple targeting and stuff like that. What was I going to show off next? Oh yes, I was going to show off settings for the defense platform. So all of the structures have a settings tab. Also, let me know, just really quickly, let me know in chat or something if my microphone is screwy. I've had some issues with it recently, but I think it's fixed. But yeah, let me know if it's bad or anything. Anyway, all of the structures have settings. So the defense platform has two settings here. It lets you set the laser color. You'll see that they were using yellow lasers, I guess. I actually don't remember if they were, but you can change them to whatever you want to match your faction color scheme. And then there's also a fun setting for setting the basically aggression level of your defenses. So do not auto attack pilots with minimum relation. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's really hard to describe what this is otherwise. So your faction has relations to other factions. If you deploy structures for your faction, they will use the minimum relation, or it will basically, this is referring to the relation you set for other player factions. So if you want, you can set your station to attack nobody, even hostiles, unless it is attacked first. So if your station is under attack, it will always fire back, but you can set it to be passive and not attack anyone from the get-go. This is great for stations that want to be like neutral commercial stations, stuff like that, that just want to act defensively, but otherwise want to let neutrals inside the shield perimeter to access their services. Yes, you heard that all correctly. We will be explaining all of that very shortly with the other structures. If you want, you can have it attack absolutely everyone who isn't in your faction. So that's great if you're insert name of really aggressive faction here. And you can also change this per structure that you own. You can have some structures that for your faction that are, say, commercial structures that you want to allow other people to access. Other structures of yours might be locked down defensive military structures that you do not want anyone else to get close to. So you can do that. That's sort of an overview of the defense platforms. Arctic, anything to add so far? How am I doing?
Pretty good. There's a lot to
There's a
get to,
lot.
and the
Oh, sorry, I think I
yeah,
cut
there's a
you off
lot.
there.
No, you're good. There's a lot to get to, and the dev blogs will help with this.
Yes. I know, yeah, it's
Um,
a ton of information all at once.
One important thing that I was pretty fond of is I wanted to make sure that when we brought stations to the game, that there was a full economic loop, right? So you would
Hmm.
take resources to secure space. You'll craft your fuel, you'll take the fuel to the stations. But with heavy water and with the upgraded fuel, it's going to bring a really cool opportunity because I know you haven't mentioned this yet, but the heavy water can only be refined in player station refineries and not in
Yes.
NPC refineries. Meaning that to make the premium fuel, you are going to have to take that heavy water to your player station, refine the water there, then take that back to secure space to craft the premium fuel that will then either be sold on the market or transported to another player station.
Yeah.
So there is actually an economic loop that involves a lot of transport. I think pirates are going to be pretty excited that there are going to be a lot of opportunities to try and grab people on these trips and escorting your cargo ships. Stuff like this is going to be really important.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot more to talk about there with the economic loop. Talking a little bit more about economic loop and what I was hinting at with the idea of commercial stations, I'm going to go ahead and show you the settings for the shield tower because this is another really interesting development that this wasn't really in our original conceptions of stations. Is the idea that we're going to let you charge an entrance fee if you want to let people into your structures. So again, this is for that player who wants to offer services like repairs or ship refitting um, to players in wild, but wants to charge for it, or just a safe place to hang out and trade with other players in wild. So you can set an entrance fee up to, currently it's up to 10,000 or 9,999 credits that gives other players 24 hours of access to your little structure complex here. And in addition to that, you can set waiving the entrance fee for your friends, your allies, whoever you want. So if you're a faction that is operating a commercial station, but you have an allied faction that you want to get free access, you can set um, your stuff up like this. You can also just have no entrance fee and only allow relations or allow anyone who's neutral and above to come in. So lots of really fun stuff you can do with this to make really emergent gameplay. Yeah. Talking about Arctic was talking about the refinery, so let's go ahead and fly over there. Hopefully, I have some ores to refine. I have one gallium ore to refine.
Sorry, I have returned.
Oh, welcome back. So the refinery. Actually, okay, yeah. Before I talk about the refinery, I'm going to talk about the storage system in general. So I was talking about these four tabs here about how things are stored in structures. So there's a public tab, a faction tab, a cache tab, and an admin tab. The public tab isn't actually like totally public. This is just anyone who can access the structure. So you'll see that like the cargo depot, if you go to manage the structure, you go to settings. Um, there's a setting for accessing the public storage section. By default, it's just your faction, but you could set, anyone who's your friend to access the public storage section. And then anyone who is set to friendly for your faction can access this single storage tab. So they could drop off cargo here. They could take cargo from it. Maybe you would keep a few crates of fuel here or something, or some basic supplies in a storage silo for your friendly factions. But your real stores, you would say keep in say like your faction tab, where only your faction members can access it. So maybe you'd put something in your faction tab if it's like really valuable. You don't want just anyone to be able to take it. Same thing with cache and admin. So remember that I showed off this new role for cache access. The idea behind this is that your faction members who have that cache access role or are administrators will be able to access the cache tab. And then, of course, the admin tab is just for administrators. So really valuable items. This is a cargo depot. There's also a storage silo where you can store arbitrary, any item. You would probably drop off your really valuable stuff in the admin tab there so that it can only be accessed by admins. So thinking about all that as we go over to the refinery, the refinery operates similarly. It has 4 queues, one per level of access. So the public queue you can set, once again, I'm showing this UI a lot, but you can access any, you can let anyone access that public section if you want. But then the other ones, the faction queue, the cache queue, the admin queue, etc., can only be accessed by those specific roles. So right now, I need to get more ore.
There was one quick question
Yeah, go
from
for it.
Zoomer, and I think everyone's pretty interested in this one. Can you apply custom colors to your structures like faction skins?
Great question. Not implemented yet, but planned. Yeah, I mean, we definitely want to allow that because we want you to make these structures your own and everything. They're all set up very similarly to ships are, with the primary and secondary divisions, as you can see, so they can all accept skins. That system just hasn't been built yet, but yeah, we want to allow applying skins and cosmetic skins to the structures for your faction, and then also smaller structures, things like faction banners and static ads and stuff that you can put outside of them will be great as well.
Someone did ask, how will we make profit from this? I think Keth will go over that soon.
Yes. Yeah, I will go over how that all works. I am going to quickly, let's see, what do I want to do here? I'm going to quickly cover up my stream while I give myself some items. So bear with me for just 1 second here and enjoy my my desktop background. Okay, I think we're back here. It's not a big deal. Now if I go to transfer items, so you can see I had an old job in here that that I finished up. So I can transfer those out of there, add those to my inventory. On this admin queue here, I'm going to go ahead and start a job. Let's do like 500 coralite ore. And once you have that in there, we'll also do like 250 recnite. You can choose to start processing, and when you do that, if that worked, yeah, it looks like I missed a socket event there, but once you start processing, you'll see that there's actually a reactor that shows up actually doing the refining, so you'll be able to see like how many refining queues are active at once, which is pretty fun. And it'll give you the time remaining and stuff, and it'll show you the progress. You can stop processing at any time. So I could stop processing there. If I start processing again, you can actually see that this is picking up um, the refinery's base bonus to its refining yield. So you will get an automatic 10% bonus to refining yields by using the refinery structure in wild. So there's an automatic 10% improvement over what you get from refining in NPC stations. In addition to that, it picks up my personal player skills. So if you have a player who is particularly adept at Vexnium processing, you might want to have that person start processing the queue. But this ensures that this is always going to be superior to processing an NPC station. So there's an automatic benefit to processing at these at a wild structures refinery. And in addition, as Arctic mentioned earlier, heavy water can only be refined at player structures. This is due to core sec regulations, whatever that means, but it's also very convenient for making a nice economy loop where you have to mine heavy water in wilds, bring it to your stations, refine it, then bring it back to um, NPC stations to actually craft the high grade fuel to eventually bring back to your station. So we see that that refinery queue turned off there, and if we see here, it's all done, and I can take these items from my there's a again missed a socket update there, but I got the Recnite. So that's refining. So we shut off defense refining. We shut off cargo storage. I've shut off the refitter. Oh, this is actually convenient because I got damaged by those pirate ships earlier. Repair bay works very similarly to
It's
how you.
like you planned it.
Yeah, yeah. This stream has been a masterclass in planning. Um, so once you get close enough here, I think I've set this to like 250 meters, which is actually really difficult with large ships. So I'm gonna have to update that. But once I back in here, I can actually request repairs, and it'll repair me. You do have to request repairs from the repair bay um, for reasons. One of the reasons being it uses a consumable item, and we don't want you just flying up and using up that consumable item if you don't want it. In addition, similar to the shield tower, if you can choose to allow anyone to use this and pay a nice fee for getting repaired. So let's say you want to operate a wild structure that is basically a waypoint for players to repair their ships. You can do that. You can set your shield tower to let neutrals in, and then you can charge people for it. So cool. So when we're talking about like how do you make profit off of this, those are a couple of the ways that you do. You make profit by the fact that the refinery has an increased yield relative to NPC stations, and additionally, you can charge other players for services like the repair bay. You can also charge other players, something I did not show off earlier, is the settings for the ship refitter. The ship refitter similarly has a refit fee. So those refit parts that you saw earlier, where when I was swapping out, basically one module corresponds to one refit point or refit part, and so you can charge a fee per part used. So that's great too. And it will also charge you to switch your ship. So like switching out a destroyer uses like 8 refit parts, for example. So you can charge for that as well. Go ahead, Arctic.
It's worth noting, and this is a really big part for me as someone who does actually play Starscape. I've spent the last couple of months kind of excitedly running around wild space doing mining. Let's say you build these structures the way they are right now. One of the benefits, and again, this is not even the primary benefit, but one of the benefits of having this stuff out there is that I can switch between my Yukon and my Echelon
Hmm.
in wild space to do PvE and mining at will with the ship refitter. I
That's
can
right.
then store those items in my item depot and make trips back to secure space when I decide to, and through wormholes that are nearby. Meaning the gameplay loop that requires you to go back to secure space and come back out to wild and go. I got to fly 30 jumps to switch to my Yukon to come out and get this mining, anomaly I found. All of a sudden, I can do that all within this system as long as I have it fueled, right? Obviously, there are requirements to go back to secure space. You're going to
Yeah.
have to do it. And we want that to be there. That's important that you require players to travel like that. But I can hop in my echelon. I can clear out an entire system of PvE. I can go dump my items in my item storage, hop in the ship refitter, switch to my Yukon, go for some mining if I want to. That alone, it's not even the primary benefit. It's actually going to be one of the smallest benefits of having player stations. But that for me is huge. That offers so much flexibility to what I want to do that day if I happen to be playing Starscape.
Quick update here. My shield tower is about to run out of fuel, so we can see what that looks like. So that's a nice segue to talk a little bit about what happens when you don't fuel your structures. Um, Obviously, most of them are not as dramatic as the shield tower. The shield tower is your main line of defense really for your structures if you choose to have a shield tower. Um, and when the shield tower goes offline, you get that fun effect. Um, don't worry, fuel will last longer, as I mentioned earlier, than it currently does in the dev build. But um, so that means you have to keep your structures refueled. Structures don't operate if they're not online, if they don't have fuel. So if a ship refitter is offline because it's lacking fuel, you can't refit your ships there. If a repair bay is offline, you can't repair, you can't store items, etc., or use refinery queues, and your defense platforms won't fire. So it's very important to keep fuel moving to your structures. And currently, to do that, you will have to craft the fuel. There is no factory structure at this time or manufacturing facility at this structure, and that is partially a balancing decision in order to make it so that keeping a station or keeping structures running is hard. Uh, you're going to have to be running fuel from NPC stations where you can create it all the way to your structures. Wormholes will help with this, of course, if they're around, but you're not necessarily always going to be able to rely on that. So you may have to set up, have a sort of a backup base of operations and an unsecure secure system that's close by where you can reliably source your fuel from. Um, so yeah, for example, I mean, from here, we're 26 jumps away into the middle of colonization zone gamma here. And so that's one of the reasons that ships, the Andromeda and Mantle were added, is because we want to make it a little less. We don't want you to have to be making constant resupply runs or anything, um, but we do want you to have to worry about logistics with this. So a large faction, with 200 or 300 members, active members, could probably keep several structure complexes like this fueled and ready to go. But if you're a small group, just keeping something like this up and running could be a challenge depending on where you place it. So that's going to be something to consider. So we've talked a lot about how all these structures work, how you deploy them, and logistics. Is it time to talk about offense? I think it might be.
I
So,
think that's one of the biggest things on everyone's mind right now is,
yeah.
so I'm not there, or maybe I am there, but it's just me. Like, How is this going to work when 15 people come to destroy my station?
Great question. So to answer that, I'm going to go ahead and refuel this this guy. Let's see. 7 of these should be enough for the demonstration. Okay, so we'll bring that back online, and we're also going to jump into my destroyer that I have here so I can show off some fun stuff. Let's see, I am missing, oh no, I just have too much ore. Let me drop this off in the refinery real quick. Okay, okay. So now I'm, oh my gosh, I still have too much. Oh, my accident. I forgot to drop off my accident. Okay, so now I can go into the ship refitter because I don't have any crates. That's what I was doing there. I did see a comment about how stations aren't going to be accessible or feasible for solo players. I don't think that's always going to be true. We are starting out with a faction focus. We do have the solo player in mind, and a dedicated solo player I do believe could run a complex. It will be difficult though. You'll have to be, on your game and probably forge some friendships and alliances with others. So I'm going to switch to my justice here though. And do I have the module with me? No, I don't. So I'm going to need to go ahead and set that up in a moment. But first, I'm just going to add a bunch of turrets. Bear with me here. I'm going to take my stream off the screen one more time as I give myself a new module. Okay. So, it looks good. What have we got here? We've got a siege module. And the siege module is
fun part.
our answer. How do we balance this? Because obviously, if there's a blob of 100 enemies, you can't defend against that very easily. And like, let's say an enemy fleet had like 50 destroyers that just go around roaming around around wild space destroying structures. It's not fun, right? These things are going to cost a lot of resources and time to set up. If they can just be destroyed willy-nilly, it's not fun. To make it so that you have to risk something, the attacking group has to risk something, the answer we've come up with is the siege module. This is a module that is limited to destroyer class ships. You can fit one on a ship, and it does exactly as you see here in the little pop-up. It increases your structure damage, currently 500%. So what this means is we're balancing structures so that if you don't have siege modules, if an attacking group does not have siege modules attached to its ships, it's not going to have an easy or particularly, what would I say, probable, likely chance of taking down a player structure. Because these things are going to have, the shield tower in particular is going to have hundreds of millions of hit points. So let's go ahead, and now that I've got everything attached, I'll show how it works, just to make clear what I'm talking about here. So if I finish, oh yeah, I'm overweight again, so I need to offload the Andromeda in my inventory. Okay, not overweight anymore. And all right, let's go out and let's see what it looks like when I choose to siege this structure. And it'll take a second because this is a huge shield and this justice is pretty slow. Yeah, this is what actually, to talk a little bit about this is what nuked the original idea for stations, is combat is going to be a nightmare. With that original station implementation. We had an idea of like vulnerability timers and things like that, but it was just not going to be fun because you would have situations where you could just have giant blobs roaming around taking out structures or stations. So to combat that, we have the shield module. So I'll show what this looks like. Oh, wait, this is my structure. I can't siege it. Wait, that's a problem.
This is
Okay.
a small problem.
I can't attack my own structure, can I? Wait, can I not? I forget. Let's see. I thought I could. I don't know why it's not letting me. But I'm supposed to be able to. Well, I guess this is a bug. What you would see there if this was operating properly, and I'm sorry that it's not. I must have screwed something up. Is that I'm not doing a lot of damage. Like the shield has a high deflection, high armor, or just an incredible amount of hit points, and it doesn't really work to attack it head on like that. Instead, when you activate your siege module, your weapons will automatically target, as you can see here. And not only will they automatically target, but they will do seriously increased damage. So yeah, you would see that it was plus 500% in the description of the module. And those will automatically fire because sitting at a structure and holding down a button for like half an hour is just torture. And people would use, automated methods anyway with like auto clickers and stuff like that. So instead, the siege module will allow you to auto fire, but we're still balancing the idea around it a little bit. You can see right now that my energy regen is currently negative, so my siege module will drain me of energy in 6 minutes, so that you can't just walk away and siege forever. You'll need to be managing your ship. It just won't be like a totally manual process. So the expectation, we're balancing this around, say, 25 groups of like 25 or 50 destroyers who want to, go and siege structures. So locking it to destroyers like this is nice because it means that an attacking faction needs to risk something. If everyone could just get in like cheap frigates and swarm a structure and take it out, it's just not as, there needs to be a barrier to taking these out. So in addition, the siege module, if I can access it, stats here. Okay. In addition to that, it has passive modifiers that make flying your ship kind of unpleasant to ensure that you really actually want to siege something if you have a siege module attached. Not only does it take up a module slot, but it's going to give your ship debuffs that will affect it modestly, at least in normal operation, normal combat. So a ship with a siege module attached, you have to be pretty sure that that station or that structure that you're attacking does not have a big group ready to defend it, because you will be something of a sitting duck. And in addition, of course, your ship agility and ship speed while you are sieging is incredibly low. You can barely move. So this is how we're balancing things. And as we mentioned earlier on, this is going to be an active balancing effort. We're going to release this. It will be imperfect. And then we will have to, decide what changes need to be made. But we're pretty confident that the siege system will solve, at least in part, some of the problems related to just getting, large groups flying around, bashing structures everywhere, because it will be unpleasant for them to do. People will still do it, but it will lose its novelty at some point, and things will settle to an equilibrium where structures hopefully are only being destroyed if you really want to, and not just kind of on a whim. So that's the siege system. Sorry that the actual damage effect isn't working. I forget why that is, honestly. Maybe I did restrict it to there probably is some damage calculation related to the fact that the structures are in my own faction that is messing with that, but that will be fixed. And then obviously all the structures inside a shield tower's boundary are invulnerable while the shield is active. But as soon as that shield goes down, like we saw earlier in the stream, the shield tower is vulnerable, and all of the other structures are vulnerable as well. They have their own shields, but it's nothing compared to the shield tower. The shield tower has far and away the largest shield number of shield hit points in the game. So, whew, kind of a whirlwind tour. And I know this is a ton to take in. I mean, this is the biggest update in Starscape history for sure. Yeah, it's huge. Give me 1 second while I take a look at something here. Arctic, that message that you sent me. Can you send me? Can you send a message so I know?
Yeah.
Thanks. I have no idea how to work Twitch.
Don't worry about it right now, then.
Okay. Let's see. What else to talk about? Yeah, I mean that is like a majority of what to talk about, I think, for the update.
A couple some
Go
people
for
are
it.
going over a lot of hypotheticals with how am I going to defend my station and this and that. There are no vulnerability timers with stations. Stations can be attacked at any time. And this is why stations are going to be cheaper than any other type of station we developed before. They're still going to cost,
Yeah.
right? But it's going to be something that, say, me as a moderately wealthy solo player and any other solo player like me, we are absolutely going to be able to at least try to set up a complex. I plan on setting up a complex by myself and maybe making some strategic alliances to ensure protection, right? And I think a lot of people are going to be doing that. But these stations can be destroyed. Our goal was to stop a group of like 6 people warping through wild space, just trolling structures and destroying them. And the way we've done that, of course, as Keth has been going over, is the siege module. Let's say you've got a fleet of 10 guys and you throw the siege module on all of them, which realistically speaking, you're going to need the siege module on most of them if you want to take out a structure, especially if you're going to try to take out a structure like the medium shields, which you might not even be able to do with 10 people. But if you put that siege module on all 10 of those ships in your fleet, that means if you go up against anyone in combat, even a much smaller number than your fleet, if you go up against 5 people who don't have those debuffs, you could lose that fight pretty easily. You are reducing the power of a lot of your ships to be able to bring them to attack structures. It's a big risk, and we want it to be a risk. Smaller groups of players are probably not going to be able to destroy these structures without assistance. And if you're defending your station, it might only take a couple people to effectively defend a station against an attacking force of 10 or 15 because of the debuffs that siege module brings. as Kess said, this is going to be a process of changing a lot of numbers. Um, if the structures are too hard to kill, then there are going to be too many of them, and we'll have to balance it. If they're too easy to kill, nobody's going to want to risk building them, and we're also going to have to adjust it. So this is going to be a big process with the entire community as we balance these out and make them work.
Yeah, there is going to be a lot of balancing here to talk about. Absolutely. So we're just gonna, there's so much coming in this update that, yeah, it's not all going to be perfect. And as Arctic was saying earlier, we definitely don't want solo players to be excluded from this by any means. Um, we're just going to keep iterating on this to make sure that it's like really awesome. It's already really cool. It already works. But yeah, it'll definitely take some balancing to get perfect. So let's see. I guess at this point, Arctic, have I missed anything at this point, or should we just open up and start taking questions
I
from
don't think
viewers?
we've looked at the item storage station, but that's pretty self-explanatory.
Oh yeah,
It uses the same permission system as pretty much everything else. We've gone over the refinery, we've gone over the repair bay, the ship refitter, the cargo. Obviously you customized that defensive platform, which was pretty good.
yeah. Just to show this off, yeah. So you can transfer items between your lovely storage silo here and your ship. And yeah, as Arctic was saying, with the same permission system, it'll tell you the volume that you have stored. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think this is something that people have wanted a way to just store items in wild for quite a while, just kind of standalone. And if you wanted to, you could just deploy a storage silo, to try to keep it hidden, sort of on its own somewhere. So, uh, yeah. Oh, another thing to mention is that although I am in a ring here, I just want to make clear that structures are not restricted to rings or anything. You can deploy structures in any um, region of space that is static, which means it's not an anomaly, it's not like a mission zone or anything like that. So you can deploy structures in any region of space that is permanent, as long as you have to be currently the number is 8 kilometers away from the warp in point. So that's that's a consideration because we don't want you to just be able to your structure will not. We're going to make sure your structure can't just like alpha just completely destroy anyone who warps into the system. We want to make travel not insanely hazardous. So um, players will land outside of the targeting range of your structure. But cool. Um, yeah, there's a lot to talk about. Lots to talk about. We're gonna go ahead and start taking questions and start looking more at questions from the official questions channel in Discord. So go ahead and keep posting there. I'm gonna take a look now and just pick some out to talk about. Yeah, so
One that's been
go
asked a
ahead.
couple times is there any way to craft probes within these structures? Which I do not believe there is currently.
Currently, there is no crafting of any kind at the structures. We want to do some form of crafting. We left it out because it is difficult to balance, right? If you can, like, for example, craft fuel out here, we want logistics chains and supply runs and stuff like that. So we want people to have to haul stuff between different places. And to do that, it makes it very difficult if you can just build anything you want. At your wild structures. You would never have to leave. So we're looking at that. It's definitely something we want to include in the future, but it's unlikely to be in the first release.
And we could absolutely do some kind of probe forge, like its own special structure that could do any number of things
Yes.
if we wanted to. Someone mentioned, will unfueled structures despawn after some time? I don't believe so.
Right. Yeah. I don't believe structures are set up to ever despawn. They have to be destroyed. Constructors, I think like if you just deploy a constructor and leave it there, I think it will despawn after like 30 days. Um, but the structures themselves have to be destroyed. I did see a quick question about how the credits work. So, like if you have repair fees or refit fees or entrance fees set up for structures that you are charging credits for access, there is a credits section on the structure management which allows you to transfer those credits to your faction. Or if these were deployed for myself, this would say transfer to self. Um, and so the credits are stored in the structure until someone manually goes in, transfers them to the faction or the owner. So um,
So we do not have cruisers are not coming with this update.
yes, yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit
Oh,
because
let's.
just in general, I think something nice to talk about is the fact that structures open up a lot of fun and interesting new gameplay mechanics. You can imagine there being individual structures for a lot of different purposes, and one of these in the future likely and is planned to be honest, a shipyard. And
I have the model built already.
yes, Arctic already has the model built because we were going back and forth on some stuff, and originally the ship refitter looked different. Anyway, um,
That's besides the point.
beside the point. But the reason that larger ships aren't in Starscape right now is because there's just no point to it, right? There's no interesting NPC combat for larger ships, and then it's just why do you have a larger ship at all? Well, you'd have a larger ship because an enemy faction has a larger ship, and you want to have a battle. And what are you battling? What are you fighting over? So it's just not really a point to have larger ships. Structures kind of change that calculus. Um, you can imagine this is a medium shield tower. That's not going to be the biggest size in the future, and that may warrant new ships to that can only be constructed at structures and that you kind of need if you want to be able to take out the largest structures. So we are thinking about that. And a line that Arctic and I kind of kept coming back to while working on this was at least I kept saying structures fix everything because a lot of the complaints about the game are fixed with structures. I don't want to promise too much. I don't want to talk too much about the future, but
Yeah,
like,
let's avoid that for now, and we can
yeah,
mention like obviously, I think one way that we're going to make cruisers in the future will probably be a shipyard you can build. That's not too hard to jump to that conclusion. But there's so much to talk about with these. Windows had a question that is good. He said, "So what I'm seeing here is that there's going to be a really fine balance. Stations need to be strong enough to deflect huge player siege groups, and weak enough to not instantly be killed by
yep,
poor passerbys." So part of this is why there's a medium shield tower. So most players, most small groups, including probably myself, the small shield tower is nowhere near as strong as the medium shield tower, but the medium shield tower is going to eat up a lot of fuel. You're going to want to keep that fueled. The small shield tower is going to be the one you see probably most of the time. The small
yeah,
shield tower is going to be much easier for a large group to take down, but will still keep you pretty safe from small groups of players. So when when you're building your station, maybe you are a large faction. Sorry, I recognize that's Cove now. Sorry, usernames are funny. Anyway, uh, if you want to protect yourself and you know you've got some enemies out there and you know they're going to come for you eventually and they're going to bring a large fleet, that's when you're going to want to invest in a medium shield tower as opposed to a small shield tower. It is more expensive. There's going to be a real price attached to that, but it's going to provide you with a lot more protection. And so part of the balance between, you know, trying not to be too weak or too strong is the division between small and medium shield towers. And part of it is just going to be what players tell us as they use these.
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of balancing to do still because this is a major change, but
The great part is the community is going to be able to be involved in this entire balancing process. It's terrible and
it
it's great,
is.
right? It's going to be a little messy, and that's what the beta phase of a video game is for. And that's why we're wanting to treat Starscape more like it's still in its testing phases, and be willing to take risks and
Yeah.
then adjust things as we go. Because if we tried to balance this in a dev server, we could be doing that for the next 2 years. We don't want to do that. We want to bring a product and then have you guys help us, give us information. How does it feel? Are they too hard to kill? Are they too easy to kill? I actually lean a little bit more on the side of we may need to actually nerf the defenses a little bit. I think that there's a very real chance that stations may be a little too hard to kill, but
Yeah.
there's only all we can do is speculate on that until you guys have them in your hands and use them.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how the defense platforms perform. Because yeah, they have new targeting algorithms and everything. Are they could very well be too strong, especially if you put like 8 of them in here, which there will be limits based on that structure complexity cap that we mentioned earlier. But um, we're gonna have to really be balancing that and thinking about it. I'm going to rapid fire answer a few questions that I see here. Um, so let's see, where'd that first one go? Will repair base show the cost of repair with a confirm prompt to prevent scams? Yes, they will. There's a confirm prompt for all things that cost credits, so you'll know exactly what the credit price is that you're buying. Will there be a marketplace module? We've discussed it. We really like the idea. Not with initial release, but I would say at this point that essentially we're looking into it. I don't want to say it's planned, but it's we like it a lot. We like the idea a lot. Um, let's see. There were several others that I wanted to answer. Plans on expanding the galaxy? Not at this time. Um, if there's a chance that this update drops and Starscape all of a sudden has 2,000 concurrent users. If that happens and wild space is just really really crowded, then we'll look into it. But right now, I like the size of the galaxy or the map, and so no plans to expand it at this time. Um, let's see.
Someone asked if we'll eventually be able to put the turrets on the defense platform as if it was a ship customization menu instead of the menu with turrets.
Oh yeah, right now the system isn't fantastic because I'm trying to move fast. Probably in the future I'll make a polish pass on the defense platform turret loadout UI. You know how it's say you are actually kind of like you have that orbital view of the defense platform. You can click on parts of it to add turrets. But for now, what we have is serviceable, so we're going to stick with that. As part of that same question, I see, do constructors get consumed? Yes. Constructors, you need it's one constructor per structure, so there will be a base cost for constructing the constructors, um, and then the individual structures they construct will cost different amounts of cargo to construct. I'm saying construct so much, um, but then yes, when a structure is finished, the constructor is consumed. Um,
We are absolutely planning on adding a habitat structure. It's
y-
not an initial release, but we have already discussed that extensively, and the idea of being able to have your little house in wild space with your stations is a big deal, and we definitely want to bring that.
yeah, absolutely. We as soon as we realized eventually that habitat structures that you can walk around in fit in very very well with this system. Um, so we definitely have plans for that. Um, we're starting out with this because it's a little smaller in scale. It's not quite as risky. As soon as you have a system where people are getting out of ships, things become a little tricky, especially with like what happens when players return to the game and that structure isn't there, for example. It's tricky to decide what to do, but we can solve it. It's actually a very solvable problem. So um, Let's
We will
see.
eventually do a station remodel for NPC stations. We do
Yeah,
mostly just need the models. We're not working on it right now because our focus has been on the player stations, but eventually we'll remodel the stations.
yeah.
It's not something we're working on right now, though.
Will you be able to add signs to your stations eventually? Yes, I've mentioned this in passing a couple times in the stream, but my plan is to allow you to deploy a couple potential things. One would be like a static faction banner, and the other would be an advertisement that lets you just put an advertisement on a billboard outside of your structure. It wouldn't be like looped into uh, the main game's advertising system. It would just be like you could put whatever you want just for that one billboard. So that could let you do ads, keep away messages or inviting people, stuff like that. It'll be fun. That's not coming with the initial release, but basically everything in the initial release is what you see here before you, and then the small shield tower as well. Those are the structures that are planned for release.
We would
Uh,
love to bring cloning bays to player structures eventually, but
yes,
that's its own set of discussions around balance and stuff. As you
yes,
said, as Kath just said, everything that you can see on stream is what we're getting with initial release, and then everything after that is basically just a rough plan at the moment.
yeah.
We would like to bring them eventually.
Um, Someone asked if your structure gets attacked, you could lose ships and items you have stored there. I don't know if I would ever feel comfortable leaving anything in a station that could be attacked while I'm offline. That is definitely something, talking again about, we're going to have to balance this. It's something where we don't want you to be constantly worrying about it, but it could happen. It certainly could. And yes, yeah, everything that you store in these structures can be destroyed or dropped if the structure is destroyed. So it is something to be aware of for sure. Um, Now, in the future, there is definitely a world, not a world, light plans for allowing structures in secure space. We're talking about in like having a system for licensing fees with Corsac, to have a more private structure, similar to that second iteration of stations we worked on that were private. That will not be releasing with this update, but it is something that I think we want to add, that is essentially planned at this point. So if that is something that worries you, don't worry, we do have plans for that in the future. No timeline on it, of course. That's the thing to be um, clear on here, is that this update, although it is feature complete for everything you see and mostly just needs polish and bug fixes, I'm not going to be giving a release date right now. I suspect it will be pretty soon, but I don't want to give official release dates until I'm 100% positive what that date is, um, because things could come up during testing that are unexpected. At this time, I do intend to put this on the public test server first, because there's so much to this update that needs to be tested a little more thoroughly than what I'm able to do, or like I and Arctic are able to do. Even a group of 5 or 10 people, we would likely miss things. So, um, in all likelihood, this will be put on the public test server before it goes live, just because there's so much to test with this update. So, um, keep an ear out for that. So many questions.
Someone asked, "Will there be the ability to make multiple player structures at different planets?" Yeah. There's going to be a limit in the system for stations, a limit based on the complexity, but they can be built anywhere within the system at a planetary warp point or a ring.
Yes. Oh, great questions about how do you disassemble structures and move them to other systems. Fantastic question. I will show that off. Um, so this is that new defense platform that I built earlier, and we're going to go ahead. and deconstruct this. So first I need to, so that in the settings menu, there's a disassemble structure option. Right now there are turrets, so I need to remove all those first. And it's a similar thing with other structures. If there's like storage in it, you need to remove the items in storage. Refinery queues need to stop, all that kind of stuff before you can disassemble a structure. I guess that didn't update. I'm having some socket event issues, so I have to reopen menus sometimes, but that should be easy to fix. Um, yeah, you can disassemble structures. So the way it currently works is the idea is if you disassemble something, you'll get back the constructor, and then you'll get back half of the cargo crates that you used to construct it. Um, this is another thing that is up for balancing later on. So we don't want to make it so you can just like pack up and leave instantly, with no penalty. But we also want to allow you to retreat, to make a tactical or strategic retreat from a system if it's beneficial to you, and not lose everything. If you see the writing on the wall and the enemies at the gates, we want to allow you to disassemble structures. So once you go through the confirmation process here, it starts disassembling. It will actually take 15 minutes. Again, this is dev timing. So boom, boom, boom. 10 seconds left. So once that's disassembled, it plays a nice little disassemble effect, which you'll notice is the same thing that the ships when they go away show, and then you get back. Again, right now the structures cost 1 core light and 1 fuel to build, so it's just giving me back 1 core light. But it gives back cargo as well if there's more cargo used to build it. It does not give back the fuel, but it will give back construction parts, which is the other cargo crate that you use to build stations. Is a new one called construction parts that you have to build in NPC station factories. Let's see. We talked a bit
Scott
about.
asked,
Oh,
will the systems have a restriction on how close they can be built to unsecure space? So I don't know if he saw the earlier reveal on the galaxy map. There are regions that you can colonize, and they are all a reasonable distance from secure space.
yeah. So there's still plenty of wild space between most of the colonization zones. There are certain areas that will probably be hotspots. So like you can see, I'm looking here, north of colonization zone Epsilon. There's only a one wild system gap right here between unsecure and a colonization zone, but you can always avoid that area. The rest of the areas are pretty far from unsecure. I also tried to keep them, not butting up right against the syndicate because, we want that area to be, you know, not totally plagued with structures. So same thing with like the mining guild. Station turrets cannot mine. Um, Currently, again, we love a lot of ideas. There will be a prioritization process, as to what we add. Passive mining by stations sounds awesome, but it's probably not super high on the priority list. Will colonizing region borders be busted? Colonizing region borders, as it currently is implemented, will be busted. Yes. Um, I may adjust it so that the resource distribution has more of a gradient between between the regions. So yeah, like if you were between Terminus and the Alterran Reach, it would be like half of the effect from Terminus and half the effect from the Alterran Reach. That is not currently implemented. It's a good idea, though. It wouldn't be too hard to implement. So, good question. Player stations will not be revealable by probes. Right now, the only way to reveal a structure is there is to see it and fly up to it and hover over the tracker icon. It would be great if people are able to hide structures a little bit, like in rings and stuff like that. In practice, that's going to be difficult, but um, we'll see. Yeah, but yeah, right now there's no way to like scan down structures or anything. Um, yeah, I'll put an image of the map with the. So I'm gonna make a bunch of dev blogs about all these features. We've done this stream, and we'll probably wrap up this stream pretty shortly here because we've been going on for almost 2 hours now. Over 2 hours now actually, but um, I'll be posting dev blogs about all these features more in depth because I know not everyone had time to join us for this, and not everyone has time to watch an hour and a half video after the fact either. So. Um, There is no current in-world explanation for heavy water being a wild system refine only, other than it's a Corsac regulation. Um, Being intentionally vague on there, being pretty honest about the fact that it's a balancing issue more than anything. I would love to have a good reason. I tried to think of stuff, but it doesn't really, nothing sounded particularly plausible. So, um, transponder allowing stations to advertise themselves. I love that idea. Obviously not coming in this initial release, but love the idea. Um, what's going to stop colonization zones from becoming massive piracy hotspots? I mean, they kind of will be. I mean, I wouldn't say they're piracy hotspots. I'd say there'll likely be a lot of factions and powerful groups vying for power in them. I don't think it'll be piracy in the original sense. It'll be more player faction combat oriented, I imagine. Hopefully, there's room in there as well for individual players, but we'll see what happens. Uh, yes, pirates could camp public safe zone structures. There would be nothing stopping that. I mean, you could warp out still, but yeah, that definitely could happen. That would be up to the owners of that structure to ensure that it's a legitimately safe place. Um, let's see. Will siege modules be usable on pirate dens and drone factories? Will there be a ship-oriented version of it similar to point defense? No current plans to make like an auto-targeting module, like a general auto-targeting module. Thought about it, not currently planned. Would be easy to add if we wanted to. I am actually not sure if siege modules work on NPC structures, if that damage bonus applies. I suspect it does, but so there is a chance that you can target NPC structures. Any new resources? We mentioned heavy water is coming to the game, so that will spawn in ice deposits and comets. It will be quite rare. You can't disrupt people inside of shield areas or damage them in any way. NPCs currently are not set up to bother the station. If NPCs happen to spawn close enough to the station, they might take some or structures, they might take some pot shots at it. Yeah, but if you have defense turrets, they would make quick work of them, I imagine. Currently, there's no turret setting to set your defenses on like a police mode. That's a cool idea. I probably won't launch with that. Um, yes, other factions can help support stations. So yeah, something that I showed off is all these settings and things. Um, for example, like the cargo depot, let's say you had an alliance of factions, you could set your minimum relation to ally for the public storage setting here. And then in this public section, allied factions could drop off supplies for you and stuff like that. Same thing with the shield boundary. You could set the setting to minimum relation to enter being like ally, something like that. And then your allies could come into your station. They could drop supplies off. They could get repairs for free. They could refit their ships. The only things they wouldn't be able to do is they wouldn't be able to manage the structures. So structure management, like changing the settings, disassembling structures, adding fuel, stuff like that, is restricted currently to structure managers. So that'll be something to consider. No, pardon me. Man, I'm actually, I think I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit, so we're gonna wrap this up pretty soon, I think.
That sounds like a pretty good indicator that we will do more talking in the future.
Yes. Yeah, I
And I'm
think,
happy to answer any questions as the day goes on and stuff.
yeah, I think that is probably a pretty good place to stop it. We've been going on for a long time. Um, let's see. Final thoughts. Arctic, do you have yeah, any final thoughts?
The alliances are already in working.
I'm
My
very
station will survive, and if diplomacy means that my station will survive, then it will be so.
I am very, very excited to see what people manage to do. The hope is, to not keep you waiting too much longer for this update, at least for the public test server and hopefully for the live game. Um, I know that this is the third time we've talked about structures or player stations, and I know that there's a lot of um, part of the reason of like jumping in and doing this live stream is because I want to prove that this actually all works, and it's actually coming this
Yeah,
time.
it's all there.
It's all
Obviously, that
here,
doesn't mean we're going to release it tomorrow, but
but it's
it
happening.
it it works.
Yeah, and this is the next update to Starscape. So like this is, yeah. Um, and yeah, I mean, thank you all for sticking with the game, whether you play it or just keep up with progress. I know something I like to say a lot is there are a lot of people who want to play Starscape, and I know a lot of you fall into that category currently, and I hope that this update will make you want to play Starscape again, and try it out. Um, because I really think that these structures are the answer to replayability. They're the answer to the end game. They're the answer to so many things. They improve solo player experience because now solo players can, um, work for factions, and there's broader market implications. They can accept contracts from larger factions and things like that. It, we keep I keep saying that structures solve everything, and I really do believe that is true. And we're just going to expand on this system. And yeah, I can't wait to see what everyone does with it.
It is very exciting.
So yeah, I guess with that, we will wrap up for today. Um,
It was great talking with you all.
yeah, and thank you all for dealing with the technical difficulties early on. Thank you, Arctic, for joining in and answering all the questions and everything. And yeah, thanks again, everyone, for playing Starscape. So
All right, we'll catch you guys later.
see y'all later.